So, hello everybody. Once again, I am Bill Wagner, and if you've heard any of my content in the past, this is a new section in my career. It's the stuff you've heard before. I appreciate you listening, but now I'm on to this new part where I'm pretty much on my own, and it doesn't change the fact that I still get to talk to really smart people, and the best place that I found to find these people is just online. You just interact. You tell people that you find what they do interesting, and you want to get to know them a little better. And when I was about 2 months ago in August, when I was down in Las Vegas, at Evo, I saw this booth, and it was body count fighting, and it looked really interesting to me because I had seen the episodes on TBS of the E-League when they were doing Street Fighter and things like that. And so I reached out to the group, and I have with me today Jonathan, and his backstory is really amazing. He lives in California, and scrolling through his LinkedIn profile, and you can see that here on the screen. You can see that he's been in video production all his life, and I think that's important to note, because the story is what matters. Esports, as far as I'm concerned, is just the next step as far as what we consume for content online for being entertained. And what matters is stories. And so I have with me John. He's going to introduce himself. He's going to tell us a little bit about who he is. And then we're going to get into how we came this far. So Jonathan, go ahead, sir.
Hey Bill, thanks for having me. Yeah, so my name is Jonathan Craig. I am the executive producer of Body Count Fighting, and you're referencing the long career in video production. I actually started in video production when I was 16 years old, cutting Counter-Strike videos, like little montage, highlights, and clips and stuff. And actually, it was my way of like networking with really good teams, because I would reach out to the manager or the leader of the team, and I would say, hey, I'll cut together like a montage for you if I can like scrim with you guys for like a week. So it was my way of like getting in to get that practice, But I ended up signing up for a video production class in high school, learned how to use a camera a little bit, and learned how to edit. And it was there one of my high school teachers said, you can study this in college, right? And I hadn't even thought about it, college was on the horizon, and I was thinking about going, but I didn't know what to study. So I went to San Francisco State, studied it there, and did a lot of freelance work, and kind of moved a little bit away from video game production, although I was still gaming heavily and still do to this day. But I was doing more freelance stuff. And then, at the time, YouTube was brand new. Twitch wasn't even around yet. So for me, the horizon looked like, if I want to continue being a video production professional, I need to move to LA, get a job as a production assistant, and kind of work my way up in TV. And so that's what I did. So, I have, at this point, I've produced shows for Netflix, HBO, CNBC, Esquire, and a bunch of other networks. And, I've had great experiences and I loved it. But a couple years ago, I had the chance to come back to gaming and do an esports show for Machinima. And then that turned into Body Count Fighting. And this is like, I'm having the time of my life because it's connecting my two passions. I love video production and I love competitive gaming. So it's really, really cool to be able to connect those two things.
And I was listening to your story as you're talking, and there's a little piece in there that you said that you talked to these pro teams and you said, hey, if I do a video montage for your guys, that shows off your team, is it okay if I scrim with you? And I think that's an important point to talk about, is the whole give first concept, and taking your skills, whether you're a writer or you do video or you have something that you're good at and you want to exchange that for some access, and you give first and you say, hey, I'll do this for you, but this is what I want back. And it's a great concept to think about, because I find a lot of people want to be professional at, whether it's gaming, or they want to be a professional writer, or they want to do various other things in their life, and they don't understand how the give first concept works. And I think that's a really awesome thought process, and I've talked about it myself. So I'm scrolling through your LinkedIn profile, and in the past 2 years, you've gone from being a story producer for CNBC. You worked at Netflix on some content. You were a supervising producer at Go 90, and then you went from Go 90 to Body Count. So talk about when you went from Go 90, when it got bought out, and you were doing good stuff there, and then you take this leap, and you go from Go 90 into a Machinima, and they had this massive following. They've been around for a long time. They have 12 million followers on YouTube, and you get asked to do this show, I guess, ongoing series called Body Count Fighting.
Yeah, sure. So, I was kind of plugging along producing TV shows. The last TV show, well, what I would consider TV show I did was for Netflix. It was a show about this Instagram influencer named Cameron Dallas. And as I was working on that, I saw a job posting for a show about esports. And I had never done an esports show, or, since I started my career in television, I hadn't done an esports show. Of course, I started off doing esports content, but so I went in for this interview. I talked about my background, and I had some good credits under my name, so they brought me in. And that Go 90 show was actually produced by Machinima. Machinima was the production company for it.
Okay.
So that was the door into Machinima, and that was basically a daily Sports Center style show about esports, covering everything from Counter-Strike Go and League of Legends to fighting games and some of the mobile ones like Vainglory and Clash Royale and stuff. And it was an interesting concept, and I think there were a lot of players in the space at that time. ESPN had a similar show, Bleacher Report, Yahoo, but I think kind of everyone realized, and everyone kind of closed shop at the same time, realizing that the esports audience is super niche. And it's something that I kind of knew, but it's esports is a great buzzword, and a lot of marketers and people are using it to bring in sponsorship dollars. But the reality is, someone who watches League of Legends every day isn't necessarily watching Street Fighter content. Someone that watches Street Fighter content isn't necessarily turning around and watching Counter-Strike content every day. So it's hard to get a format off the ground that mixes all those things. So long story short, Go 90 ends that contract, ends that show, as does a lot of our competitors at the time. And Machinima likes me, and they liked the executive producer at the time, Ken Shea, and I was just a supervising producer on that show. And so they look at us and they go, well, we still want to play in esports, we still want to invest in esports, what do you guys think is the next play? And we had really good relationships with Alex Valle, who's kind of a legend in the Southern California fighting game scene, well, international fighting game scene, really.
Yes, he is. Yes,
his home base is here in Southern California. We had gone to a lot of Wednesday night fights that he hosts. We had sponsored SoCal regionals, and fighting games definitely don't have the scale that like League of Legends, Dota, Counter-Strike, or some of these bigger esports have. So for us, it was like we grew up playing these games. We love these games. Ken is big trash talker and still really great at the original Mortal Kombat arcade cabinets, which upsets me every time I play it.
Awesome! I love him already.
So yeah, we took this leap into fighting games and created Body Count Fighting. And the concept for the show was very simple at the time. We had relationships with tournament organizers. We really had a lot of respect for what was happening on the Capcom Pro Tour and Tekken World Tour and Mortal Kombat and what turned into like Injustice Pro Series. So we didn't want to compete with the publishers. We didn't want to compete with tournament organizers we had relationships with. So we kind of found a new spin on it, and we introduced basically show matches, like UFC style fight cards, where rather than having a bracket play out, we curate the matches, we curate the storylines based on Pro Tours, referencing the Pro Tours, we promote upcoming Pro Tours, and we kind of like fit into the community in this unique way and offer, as you said before about offering value, we really wanted to offer value and offer content that the fighting game community wasn't really seeing at the time. And we're now a little over a year in, and I think that we're really hitting our stride, and I think people are realizing what we're doing, and I think that's really exciting.
See, and that's the whole thought process is great. I've said it many times, is that the traditional concept of a standalone event with one game title doesn't work, because gaming is so fragmented that, and you're right, people that watch League and Dota aren't gonna watch StarCraft, they're not gonna watch Street Fighter people aren't gonna watch Heroes of the Storm, they're not gonna watch so it makes sense to work to try to bring titles together. And that, to me, speaks to the underlying concept of esports brings people together. Is that you can like Tekken, you can like Street Fighter, and you can like League of Legends, and you can find that common ground there. So talking about show matches, and I think that people fail to what people fail to realize in esports. What people fail to realize is some basic marketing concepts. Is that you have to get the audience to care first. And then once the audience cares about what you're doing, you can do almost any other thing that you want, but you can't start the other way. You can't just start throwing stuff at the screen to see what sticks. You have to give them a reason to care first. And so you bring in the names of people that, whether you're talking a low-tier god or guilty or Punk or people like that, you bring them in first to get people to show up, and you bring in those people, and Alex Havaye, and you bring them all together, and they sort of endorse what you're doing. Then once you have the credibility built, then you can bring in people that are just as skilled, if not more, but they don't have the same background, they don't have the same following as these stars. And so
I think that's a really good point. I think storytelling is at the heart of everything that we do, and to your point, we do absolutely try to bring on some smaller matches in our feature matches that are more local storylines that are taking place, or rivalries that have played out over the course of tournaments. But we also need those big names to help us get eyes on the project to begin with at the same time. So,
awesome.
It's kind of interesting.
Yes, exactly. So I think what I'm really driving at here when I'm talking about your story, and we're talking about these higher sort of marketing concepts, is that even though people realize it on sort of a subconscious level, it doesn't really come out of their being in the same form. Is that what matters the most is the story. What people care about is the interaction between people. And various groups have their various standards. You're not going to act the same way during Street Fighter that you would act during when you're playing StarCraft. It's because the culture is different. The game setup is different, right? It's just a different thought process, and it's not good or bad. It just is. So, what are some things that so when you started doing this, 1 year ago or so, what are some things that you guys had to sit down and sort of work out as far as your approach to this?
Yeah, well, one thing that I think is really important to point out is if you watch, we're coming up on our 8th event, which will be November 3rd at 6 p.m. Pacific. But if you've watched all of the 7 events that we've done leading up to this, you'll have seen a huge evolution in what we've done. The first event, we had Low Tier God. We had reached out to a lot of people, and pretty much everyone refused to play him because he's very notorious in the community for trash talk and saying things that are a little uncouth at times. And so everyone refused to play him. So we did this little sketch that was, basically him doing an interview talking about people refusing to play him, and then our PA is like being too loud and ruins the interview. So Low Tier God calls him out, and then they play each other. And I mean, it's legitimately our production assistant. He legitimately plays Street Fighter, watches Low Tier God, watches, and even competes in some locals. And they played, and Low Tier God, whooped his ass. And then that kind of, that created an environment in our production where people did want to come in and play Low Tier God. And so we got some legitimate matches out of that. But, we also were being very experimental in that sketch, because it is a sketch. I mean, it's meant to be entertaining. And I think that's something that people have come to realize watching body count fighting, is that we are equal parts, world-class competition and entertainment. Some of my bosses at Machinima like to say that we are trying to put the entertainment in esports. And one of the things that came out of our first event was people calling us WW Esports, which we totally embrace. I mean, if you watch our show, the players have to enter a ring, a boxing ring. They're competing for belts. We have them talk trash. And I think going into it, when we were talking about the format, we definitely wanted, number one, the storylines. But number two, we wanted the trash talk, and we wanted it to be genuine. And so, we've done things over the course of the last year to make players more comfortable. We don't have them cutting promos in the ring, looking at each other face to face, talking trash. We have them isolated in interviews. We're not trying to push anyone to do or say anything that's outside of their personality or how they genuinely feel. And some players don't want to talk trash, and that's totally fine. But, it's fighting games, and that is the fighting game community. Like, when you're really friendly with someone and you're sitting next to them and they've been beating you up, and you turn that around on them, like, your chances are you're going to pop off, especially if you're friends with them. So we wanted to facilitate that environment, and I think that we've really done that. So I think we really focus on storytelling, and we weave that in through not only the trash talk and some of the antics that we create around the matches, but curating the matches. And credit to Cheyenne Tamayo, who's our host and producer. He's totally embedded in the fighting game community. He goes to weeklies all around Southern California, multiple times a week. He's gone to tons and tons of majors since we started this, and he's observing, he's talking to players, he's listening to what people want to see. And I think the important thing here is that we listen to players and people that we respect, and we ask for criticism. We're not operating like we're putting on this perfect show and we can't improve. We're operating like, what can we do better next time? And we ask people for legitimate, harsh criticism, and they're willing to give it to us because they know that we will consider it.
Nice. And see, and I love what you said about the WWE. I've said this before myself, is that esports, in order for esports to work, you have to treat it just like the WWE. It is pro wrestling with pixels. It's the same thought process. And what you're doing on your show, it's exactly like a pay-per-view. Sorry, it's the same concept as a pay-per-view. You have your match that you lead in. You have 2 or 3 matches that you lead in. You have your promos. You have your video packages, and then you have the main event. And that's how this works, right?
And we really try to get into that. We really try to get into the gameplay as quick as possible, but also understanding that all the context and storylines that we build up beforehand help make the match more exciting. So we're always looking to find that balance, but we really have tried to shorten all the storytelling and make it just as concise as possible so that we can get right into the gameplay. But, I think to what you said earlier, every community needs something different. Like, I'm a big fan of StarCraft. I love watching StarCraft 2, but it is a completely different community. I mean, it's more like chess. And it's also the pace of the actual game itself. You're looking at these 40-minute, 50-minute, like, macro, super, super long matches where people have to sustain their energy through the course of basically the better part of an hour. And these tiny little mistakes that they make early game can affect them late game, and it has cascading effects. That's not how fighting games are. Fighting games are very, very short matches, round by round, with a break in between rounds that you can collect yourself. And for that, for that minute or whatever that you're in a round, like it's a full-on sprint. And yes, you are trying to like modulate your breathing and control your emotions, but at the same time, like it's a sprint. It's very, very high energy, and so pop-offs, I think, are a result of that release. Like when you finally do get through it and you win, and especially if it's someone who's been bullying you in past tournaments or whatever, like a pop-off is right there. It's bound to happen.
Right, and the whole comparison between StarCraft and Street Fighter is really awesome, because StarCraft, whether it's best of 3 or best of 5, you could have a 45-minute game 1, and you still have 2 more games to go, and they could be longer than 45 minutes, or they could be shorter.
Where every mineral on the map has been mined. You know what I mean? It's I love that though, but I also love the games where someone does some kind of like unconventional rush strat and beats someone in like 8 minutes too. But fighting games are always a sprint. There are long matches, but even the round timers are so short that like even the slower kind of turtle defensive matches are still like very, very high action, fast paced. I mean,
exactly, and the only way to really mix up your strategy in Street Fighter is if you change characters, whereas StarCraft, depending on your race, there are 5 or 6 viable strategies that you can do at any time.
Right.
It's a different thought process. So this is awesome. This is a great conversation. I think we could probably do this several more times.
Yeah, definitely.
So as far as winding down, I wanted to get into one thing that you said about your thought process for each show, that you want to keep the non-fighting time, the non-gameplay time as short as possible. So is that a thought process that you guys had, realizing that we can do stuff outside of the show content-wise because people can consume their content on multiple platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and all this stuff. I mean, whether it's 2 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon. So do you keep the actual show itself short on purpose, and then you have a content strategy outside of that?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you'll see daily content. A lot of it's like caption videos, memes, but we do also do a lot of original content on those channels as well. We do daily Twitch streaming and YouTube streaming. We post VODs on YouTube daily. So there is a lot of content coming out of Body Count Fighting. The actual Twitch shows, the live fight night events, us keeping it tight and trying to shorten it was, to be honest, a direct response to people that we know telling us, the fans want to get into gameplay as quick as possible. Yeah. They're not as interested in some of the stuff happening outside of games as we think they are. But it also is just us like monitoring Twitch chat during the events, and of course, like we take Twitch chat with a grain of salt, because we all know what that looks like. But at the same time, I think that there are valid points and criticisms coming out of Twitch chat, and if an overwhelming part of chat is like, "Oh my God, get into the match already," that is an indicator that maybe we're taking a little bit too long to build up the stories and all that stuff, and we need to give the payoff. Right. So that's what we've tried to do, and like I said, it's been an evolution, and every event that we do, we're trying to tweak it and make it better. But we're definitely listening to the community, and we are part of the community. We don't see ourselves as separate. We have players, commentators in our office every single day, whether they're doing daily streams or just coming to hang out. And we're always trying to talk through our ideas with them. We view Body Count Fighting as a community-based project, even though it's coming out of Machinima, which is this big company. We are our own isolated team within Machinima and within the fighting game community. And like I said, we're really, really leaning on the community to tell us what they want. We have the resources to give you what you want. So, let us know what you want to see, and we will do that. We want to make this show as entertaining as possible, and we want to provide as much value to the fighting game community as possible. So that's what we're doing.
Awesome. Jonathan, this is a great conversation. Thank you very much for making time for me. I know that you're a very busy man. Everybody head over to the YouTube channel for Body Count Fighting. Check out the Twitch channel too. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. Like I said, I'm sort of on my own now, but that's okay. It's a short-term thing. I'll be finding someplace to hang out real soon. Until then, you can follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter too, and I'll talk to you real soon.